And 5, 4, 3. Welcome, everyone, and pull up a seat at the table. It's Lunchtime in Rome. Tonight's episode 230 is entitled Getting to Know Us. You. This week, we're going to have you all get to know us a bit better. Why should you and our guest open up about their lives if we don't do the same? Of course, there will be some laughs along the way. We even have some answers from others at the table.
Or we don't.
Pull up a seat at the table and join us. First-time listeners can subscribe on your favorite podcast app or watch us live or later at youtube.com. Visit us at lunchtimeinrome.com, where there you can take our relational needs, or while there you can take our relational needs questionnaire. Make sure to follow us on all social media, and it would be great if you could give us a 5-star review. Jay, what specifically is this podcast about?
Being alone is the worst. Good times aren't as good, and bad times are worse when you're all alone. Romans 12:15 says to rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. That is how you keep people from being alone, and what this podcast is all about. We demonstrate that in the first 15 minutes, or in this case, the entire podcast, and talk about it for the rest. So while it may not be 12:15 in Rome, we're treating it like it is lunchtime in Rome without Brian again.
Still on special assignment.
Yeah.
He's putting work. He's doing work.
He is doing more work than me.
Doing work.
That is for sure.
He's doing work.
I hate reading the intro. I'm totally willing to do it, but I was never
What you would call
a learned person.
I think when Brian comes back, maybe he'll get his job back.
Yeah, right. Well, I just get so nervous, and I've always been like that. Like even like when I was little, I was all like I never you'd be in class and you'd be like waiting in line to, like you're counting the people. Okay, I got this paragraph, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to pay attention to the first half of the story.
Right, you have no
I'm
idea.
just going to read my part so I know how to read it.
I used to love when we would have Bible study in Young Life. And everybody have a Bible, always. Turtle, Anthony DeMarco, had to have the Extreme Bible, which had skateboarders on the front.
Yeah.
Because nobody else was extreme enough for that Bible.
Jesus had a skateboard.
But we would do the whole popcorn thing. But I said, you don't have to read, but we're just going to go in a circle and just say the number of the next verse that you haven't read. So like you're reading verse 3, you finish verse 3, you'd say 4. And then it would be Chris's turn, and you would pick up at 4. And it would be great every once in a while. We'd hit we would hit a stretch, and it would be like, the person finishes 15, next person 15, next person 15, and then little Wally's like, mwah! And he would take it 15 all the way through the next chapter. And I'm like, we've been done for 10 minutes, Wally. So we were careful to not put non-readers on the spot. All they had to do was be able to track and say the next verse.
Right. And the funny part is, I'm not really on the spot. We do this every week. I hear it all the time.
Well, and the big thing in it today is we said, and we have some. Where does it say it?
You're going to learn a lot more about us.
Well, there was a slight technical mistake with posting like questions to ask people.
Right.
So
I was going to say, it says we even have some answers from others at the table. Not this week.
So this episode is going to be more about us. So
Get to know us or us.
Yeah.
Should change the title.
But I want to clarify why, which is, we ask deep questions of our guests and not so deep, but we don't ever, you guys get to know us. You sit with us, and we appreciate Mary Lynn and Ashley and Breaking 90 for sitting at the head of the table by going to lunchtimeinrome.com, subscribing as a paid subscriber. We're going to have more opportunities in the future, some exciting developments for those of you locally. We're not ready to announce yet, but we're grateful for each and every one of you who gets to know us on a weekly basis, but we thought, let's be a little more vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, and, I think one thing that we could do better on our side.
Do better.
Remember, do better.
R.I.P.
Is we could probably, instead of like posting it on social media, posting like something different on social media so that people can respond anonymously, so that we can have them fill out a form anonymously, and they can put in like a story that they might not want to be all over social media, but they don't mind sharing it because it's an experience worth sharing.
So it'd be like a link to an anonymous form.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something like that.
That's a good idea.
Pretty techy.
Yeah. Well, you'll get on that, Jay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's It's been a long week today.
Sure.
Oh,
You've gone from having a long year this month to a long week today.
Yeah, but I really don't want to keep talking about it and beating a dead horse. You guys know if you've been listening, you know.
But you're getting some traction.
Getting some traction. Getting some traction.
Wouldn't say you're running fast.
No, but there's been good and bad happening, and I'm running ragged.
Yep.
Tired.
Wednesdays, you said now they're even more busy.
Yeah, we got Amy has some things going on in the evening for the next several Wednesdays, and
12 more.
Only 12 more. Yeah. So it's just, and it's full. Getting Maggie to school, getting full-time job done, then getting Maggie to bed, and getting ready for the podcast. So it's a full day.
Yeah.
So I will put my head on the pillow tonight and not feel bad about anything.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to commiserate. Like, being exhausted is exhausting. No, but it's such a defeated feeling when you're like, I got nothing. I don't know what to do. I've got nothing, and there's more to do.
Well, yeah, and Jay and I were talking last night. We got to plan something here soon.
Disc golf
trip. Like, I gotta have
something to look forward to. A finish line.
Now, Amy and I, we are having date night on Friday.
Yep.
Maggie's going to my parents. However, there's still 12 more weeks of winter ahead. There's still.
Well, I told him that the other day when it was bitter cold, I was like, I'm flying somewhere and I'm going to go disc golfing. Not with him, just me.
Right.
I'm just going.
Yeah, just.
No, I'm not going to, but I'm saying that.
Right. You're in that
But you
mindset.
could.
I'm not saying I won't.
Could. Yeah.
I'm not saying I won't.
You might.
I can
any
leave,
day.
My schedule opens up. Basketball would have to be over. But I could leave Thursday morning and come back Saturday night.
Dude, you could fly down to Florida in the morning, play around, and then fly back
at
in
night.
the same day.
Yeah.
They might even have a special ticket for that.
A special disc golf package.
Super cheap.
That'd be nice.
Just saying. Looks like your wheels are turning.
Well, it's so funny because I know people all over the place, but I'm not a stay with you guy. So it doesn't really matter.
It depends on the person. Well,
Nope.
all right.
Like if you lived somewhere else, I'd be like, we'll hang out.
Yeah.
We're just not Rachel and I both are just not a stay with you kind of person,
Yeah.
except on vacation. But even then,
For me, it definitely depends on who it is.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, you get the random from somebody that you haven't really talked to in a while, and you're like, why would I? I'll just get a room.
I remember the first time we went on vacation together, Jay, and you were like, "Yeah, no thanks. We'll get our own place."
Oh yeah.
That was just it was just your thing.
Yeah. We'll see all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey. And in more recent times,
now that's you.
Yeah, my wife, especially my Amy. She is the stay herself person 100
And I get
times
it.
over.
Yeah, not even with you.
I know. Yeah, she's like, I'll see you later.
For me, it's a busy season, but it's a good season. We pulled off our combined church service. We have a 9 a.m. and a 10:30, but people were saying, "Man, we got to all meet together." And I was like, "Do we really?" It's one of those times where I pride myself on being a good leader, because with all due respect, I don't care if 9 a.m. people don't know 10:30 people.
Right.
Because our identity is in Christ, not Faith Community Church. So what? Whatever. So I'm a good leader because I'm like, all right, you guys want to have a combined church service? Great. We'll have a combined church service. And so we did. And you two did a lot of legwork to pull it off in a different room of the church so that it wasn't at the 9 a.m. place, wasn't at the 10:30 place. And it was great. I thought it was wonderful.
It was awesome.
I
Yeah.
got lots of good feedback.
It was awesome for many reasons. Mm-hmm. Mostly getting
Everybody together.
Yeah.
And it felt
was
fresh.
awesome.
It was just
Yeah.
different.
So I'm excited for the next one.
And I enjoyed watching the 9 and the 10:30 people interact. And, the 9 a.m., they meet in a coffee shop in our church, and they each have individual tables. So we threw 3 tables up in the back of the fellowship hall. It's outside of the rows of chairs. And you see Ralph Bush planted himself in what would be the equivalent of his seat at the 9 a.m. and the 10. He's
love
like,
it.
I'm sitting right here.
That's awesome. I didn't take notice to any of that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even realize. That's funny.
When I
love
had
that.
an initial reaction, like you, Jay, that when I first heard about it, I was like, well, I mean, that's nice. We'll have a combined service, but why? And I think, I don't want to put feelings on or thoughts on you. I'm sure you've thought about this way more than I have, but
Maybe not.
I probably
It wasn't really my idea.
well, it wasn't on
so-
your right. Well, but my reaction was like, well, I don't feel like they're separate anyway, but I think that's because
You read
I'm
at
at
both
both.
services.
You go to both a lot,
I see people at both all the time,
Right.
and I think for some other people, it's like they just don't know. There's this other entity, like, oh, there's a 10:30 service. We don't know what those people do, and there's sort of that those people kind of mentality amongst some, and it's just nice to see everybody together and put a face to the sense of otherness, you know.
Yeah.
So we were able to do that, and there's some administrative follow-up that has to come from that. And tonight was the first grief share meeting, which, as much as I care, I don't know if you guys ever heard about this, but I care a lot about comfort and joining people in their emotions. And not only have I never led Grief Share, which is a Christian support group for people who are grieving the loss of a loved one.
Oh, I didn't realize it was like an official
Oh, it's an official thing.
organization kind of
Oh,
thing.
it is.
Okay.
And it's two functions: to help people grieve and to show the love of Christ to those in their worst moments. So not only have I never led it, I've never attended it. I've come into, I think we've run it now maybe 5 or 6 times at the church. Michelle's run it every time. And I've come in once or twice on the last day to just introduce myself and whatever else. So this season, it became apparent that I would need to lead it. And so I did. And that's big for me because I run my own show. I don't run curriculum.
Yeah, you don't write somebody else's. I get it.
I don't know what that even looks like, you know. And then in the group setting, I'm a facilitator. I am not a presenter. So it is my job to speak less, but yet manage the room and keep the ones who are going to talk for way too long. And even in the instruction videos for leaders, which I watched,
Wow.
you know, they talked about read the body language, you know, of the other people. And it was funny because there were times where somebody was talking, in my opinion, way too long. But I see the body language and there's people nodding and somebody's tearing up. And I'm like, all right, give them a little more, give them a little more, give them a little more. All right, let me stop you there, pal. I didn't even say pal, but
You said Pally.
But it was great, and it was a good group, and it's diverse in their grief and their timeline. And for being a facilitator, the worst is when nobody talks,
Yeah,
and pretty much everybody did, and so that was good.
that's good.
And then starting a new sermon series on Sunday, which is really exciting because it's a topic. This sounds funny. It's a topic I'm really excited about, as compared to all the other Sundays. When I am indifferent.
I'm usually so bored.
I am checked out. But it's been something I've been really passionate about, but I didn't know, for lack of a better term, to let you guys into a pastor's world, how to sell it. Here's what I want you to know, but why should you want to know it?
Right.
You know, and this week in my wonderful quiet times with God that have been so great in the mornings, he was like, here's what you want to go this way. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, go this way. And so that's where we're going. So that's what's up with me.
Nice.
That's good.
Well, I'm going to give you
2 stars. Terrible update.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. No. I meant what I'm going to share is heading downhill first, but comes right back up in a beautiful way. I already shared with both of you guys, Eric and Jay, that man, yesterday was a tough day. Like, it was just a slog through the school day.
Your Tuesday was his Wednesday, or his
Yeah.
Wednesday was your Tuesday.
I guess, right. Yeah, my Tuesday was, whoa. And it was just, it was a combination of a lot of things, but it was just one of those days where you walk into school and as the day begins and seemingly all the way to the end, there's just something strange happening. You're putting out fires, you're dealing with difficult students and classes, and that rolls into the next difficult student or class, and you get it, like, it's hard to not feel like you're constantly, I guess, under fire. You know what I mean? Like, there's that sort of like that stress. I guess it's just stress level that just there's no time for it to come back down. It was one of those days, like it just kept up and up, ramping up. And so I left, and I had rehearsal, and I saw you guys later yesterday evening, and just felt like I got nothing. Like there's no emotion left. There's no, and that is a frustrating feeling to come home to family last night and be like, I got nothing. I got nothing to give. Like Amy thought I was mad at her. She's like, you're just acting so angry with me. And I wasn't, or to my knowledge, you know what I mean? Like,
it was probably flat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was flat. I was just,
you.
I had, I didn't have much discussion to offer or what, like if she would ask me a question, I'm sure I was answering in like quick 1 or 2 word responses because I felt like I had nothing to give. And I wasn't doing that consciously. It was just like, I had nothing to give. And so I was giving off this sort of like really negative vibe. Right.
But it's nice that she cares and verbalized it and didn't attack.
Right. Yeah. Of course, then I feel guilty, and I'm like, I'm failing at this. This is, But no, it was fine. And then today, after all the difficulties of yesterday, which it involved like bullying between several students, like just like this. It was a lot. I don't want to, obviously go into specific detail, but this morning there were some really cathartic moments, like. Grandmother of one student came in and like it wasn't a planned meeting. She was just like, yeah, I'm here. And
to do what?
To talk to the principal, but also to me because I was the one who had emailed yesterday. Right. And had a very nice conversation and just talked through some of the things happening and got her perspective on things. And, she, was very, very kind in return, and so that was a very positive interaction.
As an educator,
yeah.
What percentage? I don't know how I want to ask the question, but like on the one hand, man, you want a parent / grandparent to be engaged,
right?
Like wow, the next day she shows up. But on the other hand, I would be like, look, I don't want you just showing up. Like,
sure.
Well, there was discussion. This is just like the school business side of it is like. And so she had apparently, I sent this email out to several different parents because there was an issue happening, right? And she had apparently emailed me back at like 7 p.m. last night. I didn't check my school email at 7 p.m.
Nor should you.
So 8 o'clock this morning, I look and I'm like, ooh, okay. And she says she's coming right in this morning. And so I emailed her back real quick and was like, maybe you want to like schedule something with the principal because I would hate for you to come in and feel like you're being ignored because it's just a busy time of day. I mean, kids are coming. I mean, it's just
we have jobs.
Yeah, it's a very 800 students or whatever coming into the building right then.
Yeah,
but she didn't get that,
and one grandma.
Yeah, yeah, and she didn't get
at
that
least
response in time. Obviously, and she was there, and it all worked out. The principal made time, and it was great. But it was definitely just sort of strange and on the fly. But the reason I think she came is because there's been this sort of ongoing thing. It wasn't just like all of a sudden there's this one problem this one day, and we're trying to hash that out and get to the bottom of, what's happening with the sort of bullying atmosphere and that kind of thing. And so that was one thing. And then another thing, like crazy, and here, I definitely can't get into details on this one, but a kindergartner was in need of some assistance yesterday. We have this midday block at school where some of us, like the specials teachers, like music and art and phys ed, we have to help out with other classes who go to this big midday block thing where classes go to different parts of the school to do different activities. It's supposed to be like an active lifestyle kind of middle of the day kind of thing. And kindergartner was in some need of some assistance, change of clothes maybe, and we'll call it a change of clothes. Anyway, I was assisting, and just had to run to the nurse's office for him and things, and whatever, just things I would normally do because I'm just the teacher that's there assisting. I'm not in charge of this midday block. I'm just doing this kind of thing, helping kids when they need help, right? Mm-hmm. But today, his teacher pulled me aside and said, "Did you help so-and-so yesterday?" I said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And she said, "Well, here, I printed this email out for you." And there's an email from this mom talking about like how her son came home and was talking so much about how much Mr. Davidson helped him yesterday, and it was so nice. And it's so those moments, as frustrated as I felt
When I was
yesterday,
holding my breath,
I was waiting for that to go the other way.
how dare you?
it was so positive.
You didn't have authority
There's a
to.
lawsuit happening.
Why did you put women's clothes on my son? Or why didn't you? Why was he? Never mind.
No, it was all positive, and
Which is wonderful.
it was wonderful because of all. Like again, I know I'm just helping this one little kid who needs help, but it's not the normal thing, right? And so I'm like, all right, well, how do I do this? I got to go to the nurse. I got to. But then there's this like moment this morning of like, how sweet was that of her to email the teacher?
Yep.
And like, just I felt noticed.
It
I just
balances
felt
about 20 or so negatives.
Yes, because after yesterday feeling so defeated and like, well, I can't do this. Like, how am I going to do this? I can't deal with all these the attitudes and the bullying and the things that are happening. And now today I'm like, okay, that's how I can deal with it.
I'm good through at least Thursday afternoon.
Right. That's right.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway.
Man, the number of inappropriate jokes I could have made. I am growing. And I think everybody here knows that about me. But there's some things that, we don't know about each other. And many of these I don't know for either one of you. So we're going to get to know each other as well. Chris, why don't you start out as he's leaving the room? So, and there's no order. There's no, except I try to balance heavy and funny. But really no rhyme, no reason. But I just wanted to go through some questions. The first one I'll answer for myself. Most influential non-parent adult growing up. I've said it before on the podcast. I'll say it again. I think we did a whole series on it. The things that a child needs to be a normal adult. One is an objective third-party adult without the authority to punish.
Yeah.
And for me, it's one of, it's my grandfather, Pop-Pop Bronner. He was the cheerleader. He's the one that converted his entire basement into a playground.
Oh, yeah.
Of a not big Penn Hills house, but 3 swing sets where the goal was to hit your head on the vent.
3?
Yep, right next to each other.
My gosh.
It was a tight swing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not long back and
You got
not
kids
far up.
knocking into
But I
each
mean,
other.
we would try to hit our feet off the ductwork, and it would just go boom. And
sure that's
you
good for
would
the
think,
ductwork.
you would think an adult would not want you to do that, And he had a slide, and he always gave us money and cute gifts and everything else. You cut his grass, which would take 12 minutes, and you got $20 and a Coke and a Little Debbie cookie.
Yeah.
And he was just the best. And he was, and I would almost argue that Pop-Pop Mitlow, my other grandfather, was also, if the question is influential, he was very influential. He wasn't my favorite, but he was the original boss.
Yeah.
I always said he was the oldest of 7. He was the only one that went to college, the only one that was management. And his thing, long before Donald Trump was firing people, he'd walk in the house. Where's your shoes? You're fired. You're too close to the TV. You're fired. And so in some ways I take my leadership, I think, from not the way, but the leadership qualities of him.
Yeah.
How about you boys?
Mine would be my Uncle John. Growing up, because influential, he always had the newest tech, and I always, he would always be that guy who, that's me, or at least I try to, but he would be the guy that he bought me. I remember one birthday he bought me this remote control car, and this was the coolest remote control car I'd ever seen. I think it took 12 AA batteries.
Yeah,
to work 10
right.
minutes.
I remember those back then. Yeah.
And I think he ran to the store twice to go get more batteries. I think he's probably spent more on batteries than the actual car. But yeah, he was always, I could always count on him to hang out, and he taught me how to shift a car. He would press the pedal down, and I would shift.
You're like 6.
I wasn't that old, But yeah, and we still get together. You know, I would say probably like once a quarter, just to kind of like have dinner together and catch up and just talk about stuff. And
I mean, still influential in your life to this
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Or at least a part of.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Chris?
awesome. Yeah, and
By the way, we don't all have to answer all of these. I just
Right.
want to point that out to
Right.
everybody.
I do have a good one for this one though, and I went a little different. I was trying to think outside the family because I also have great grandparents growing up and family members that were there for me. But I was trying to think non-family, so I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Inglekay. And Mr. Inglekay was an old family friend who also, from a very young age, was my tennis instructor because I took tennis lessons at the local park in Titusville.
Never heard of it.
From the time I was like 5 years old or something, and then he also taught computers at the high school, and so he was my computer teacher and my high school tennis coach when I got a little bit older, and he was very influential to me, because I had a lot of interactions with him throughout the years, but his demeanor, he was one of those, or is one of those very like mild-mannered guys who was very thoughtful, but soft-spoken, but very thoughtful.
But the words mattered.
Yes, exactly. And also, he was never afraid to like just be himself. Like he cruised around town on his moped. Only moped I ever saw in town, but he would just cruise around and he'd see you and he'd meep and wave as he went by, and like that was Mr. Inglekay. Like that's just one of his things is he drove around on his moped, and he actually, as you guys at the table here might remember, I actually when I first went to college, I was a computer science major for one semester. I wasn't that good at it, but his influence was part of that on me was part of my decision to at least attempt that in school before I switched over to music stuff. And what a cool guy. He and his wife came to one of my and Amy's Clarion University performances. We were both in the music department there. I can't even remember what performance it was, some band thing or something, and came with my parents just to come along as friends, and came over to Amy and I. Actually, we shared a trailer at that time with our dog Molly. Do you guys know this story?
Nope.
It rings a faint bell. But not a loud one.
We found a stray dog one
Somebody
summer
else's
in
yard.
college. Yeah.
Tied up.
And anyway, we did not intend for people to come over and visit, but they came over to our trailer afterwards, and this dog shed like crazy. Our red carpet that was in this trailer looked like white because of the hair. Kind of embarrassing, right? Doesn't matter to Mr. Inglekay. He just sits right down on the floor and is chatting and talking and doesn't care. Like, and I'll have that picture in my head forever that he just sat down, just nope, it's all good.
He gets up. He's covered in hair.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like Bigfoot,
What
like
he
riding a
did-
moped.
he did-
He figured it'll blow off on the drive
Just
back to Titusville on his moped.
And he did, when he stood up, he just sort of brushed off his legs and we went about our evening and whatever. I don't know. I just always appreciated that sort of thing about
Yeah.
him, that he was just, he never made a big deal about the little things. It was always he made an important but quiet point about the big things,
Yeah.
So, very influential.
Mr. Inglekay.
I appreciate people like that.
We should get a T-shirt made of Mr. Inglekay, and just says, only say the important things. And there's like shaggy pants on a moped.
Titusville Sasquatch.
Yeah. Titusville Sasquatch is hilarious.
Hashtag.
Shout out to Groot. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Good to have you here. Next one on the list is best meal you remember from childhood. I can't think of like a single meal.
Sure.
That's
What about restaurant experience?
well, I was gonna say
favorite restaurant
my favorite
from
meal,
childhood?
like my favorite consistent meal is my mom's meatloaf.
Sure.
I just thought, yeah, mom, the meatloaf. I just always remember loving her meatloaf. And then next day for lunch,
Meatloaf sandwiches. Meatloaf sandwiches. Sloppy Joe.
Restaurant experience,
Yeah, nothing.
nah.
can't do the show without doing more Titusville shout outs because it's all about
Well, as you
childhood
should.
stuff,
What's your
right?
childhood?
I've been there.
So my I
Now
don't
talk
even
about Titusville Loch Ness Monster. Who is that?
Titusville Chupacabra.
No. So great. I think I probably mentioned this on pod before, but great sub and pizza place in Titusville, Pasquale's. As far as I know, not related to Pasquale's.
Not the
locally
chain,
in
not
Penn
the,
Hill.
yeah.
Right. It's not the chain that we know here.
Yeah.
Shout out Crystal Hollis.
But oh my gosh, their subs. I used to as a kid. It is
sub.
still
Love a
such
good sub.
it's
God, I
such
miss
a
them so much.
nostalgic taste. It's just the simplest like Italian cold cut
yeah.
sub. There's nothing there's lettuce, tomato, and meat and cheese, and that's it.
Italian dressing.
Nope. I wouldn't even do that.
Mayo?
No.
Because that's controversial.
Here's the thing: as a kid, no, because my parents would just be like, "Here's your
Well,
sub," and I would eat it.
Pretty white.
And from that point on, what?
I said, you guys are pretty white. I mean, you're like, ooh, Italian dressing, too spicy. Little salt and pepper. Oh, I'm feeling dirty. Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a little kid, I just ate what was given to me.
Sure. Oh,
But it became such a nostalgic taste
Yeah.
to this day.
a nice dry hoagie just hits the
Well,
mark.
here's the
Man.
thing, though. Their bread was not. It's
No,
perfect.
dude, I'm
Bread is a
feeling
big
it. It's
factor.
perfect.
Bread is a big
Yeah.
factor.
It's
Yeah.
maybe one of the more important factors.
But no veggies on it, just meat and cheese and bread.
Lettuce. And tomato. Lettuce and tomato.
Well, okay.
Crazy.
So then you're getting into.
We got a
Yeah.
little lubricant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little right. It's
Yeah.
not. It wasn't dry. I would not describe it as dry.
So my dad charcoaled. Mom cooked the meals. Her claim to fame is that it was always ready on time and it was always hot. It was never great.
Right.
It was never bad.
Yeah.
But there was no everybody's like, oh, mom's cooking. I'm like, very consistent. But dad would charcoal. And I will never forget one day he charcoaled. I don't know if it was also ribs or at least chicken, but it was barbecued, like barbecue sauce and grilled. And you would think he burned it because it was charred.
Okay.
And we all made fun of him. I'm the youngest of 5. So if I was 6, my brother's 16, everybody's, Maryland's 17. And I remember I bit into it and I was like, well, this is the best thing that has ever. I mean, you had the char, but it was char, not burn.
Okay. He knew what he was doing.
No, it was a mistake. I mean, he was very good at the grill. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
He was very good at the grill, but he did not intend that.
Okay.
In any way, shape, or form. But I just will always remember that meal specifically as being like one of the best things ever. And as far as restaurants, stuff like that, I just think of the restaurant. I always think of the restaurants that aren't there anymore. Mm-hmm. And we could almost do a whole podcast on that.
Just in Penn Hills.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was Lums.
Never heard of it.
Yep. It was
Unlike
where
Titusville.
it was where the Sunoco is on Road I in the shopping center.
Okay. Upper Sunoco.
Upper Sunoco.
There was another
Used
building
to be
there.
Anlofts. Anloft Sunoco. It got
okay.
bought out.
Okay. Got it.
So.
Yeah.
Next.
That was what that little nonverbal communication was supposed to indicate.
I don't know
See
what
where the waveform went real flat.
Oh, this next one is tough, man. Worst date or breakup?
I don't know. Like, it's hard. I don't really have one. Like, I don't have I never had like a blowout.
Sit back, boys.
So I don't.
Because you said you don't really.
I did. Oh yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
Oh, bro. Do you want to go first?
No, you're okay. You said you didn't have worst date. You have
Right,
worst
correct.
breakup.
Exactly. So when we were discussing these questions last night, Jay was asking, well, like worst date. And I was like, I didn't really like date. Like in high school, it was just like you were either going together or you weren't going together. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so yeah. But breakup, yeah, my serious high school girlfriend, oh my gosh. Like we started going out when we were 15. And when you're 15, everything is the biggest deal ever, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So we were so in love, like more love than you could possibly imagine. Love, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And looking back, you're like, okay, well, as an adult, you're like, okay, that was like, you could put terms to it, puppy love or whatever. But we were like in love, right? until we weren't.
Until you weren't, or until she weren't.
Until she wasn't.
Oh, it's the worst. You want to die.
And it became the whole thing with like, well, now she likes somebody else, and I'm like, I thought we were like together forever, and it was
How long were you in the dumps?
Wait, how long was the relationship first?
You're okay. So you're asking for numbers,
7
and I'm
weeks.
like,
Good years.
no, it was at least 7 days.
Amy
no,
found out about her, and
no, I'd say we were going out for about a year
Oh, that's a
before we
long
started
time.
Long
having
time for
like
15.
Yeah, right.
That's a lot of life.
Yeah.
it's 1/15.
Right.
That's
how they
but
do
I mean, if you think about it, like
Yeah.
a year, like there's a lot that happens when you're 1 year, 15.
Right.
That's
And especially at that age when you feel like you're actually you're like, oh, I think I'm like a fully conscious person now. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like you
right.
start becoming more self-aware and
Yeah.
I
stuff.
feel my right brain and left brain melding. Nerd.
Yeah. So it was about, let's say it was about a year, and then it was, oh, now we've got this huge breakup. Oh, but now maybe we're kind of getting back together, but no, we're not getting. So then it sort of dragged on for a while and that sort of thing. So it was.
Sometimes there isn't a big explosion. Sometimes it just fizzles out
Yeah.
from like a movie or something.
We did both, but that's all right. How about you, Jay?
I was trying to come alongside you. You're like,
It's fine.
oh, but then when she likes somebody else, it's like you're drowning.
I can still remember that feeling. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The feeling. Yes, drowning is a great way to put it. Like you can't believe it's happening, and there's nothing you can do apparently, and you're just like.
I mean, it's never happened to me, but yeah. So not as dramatic, but in the middle of my desperation to find a spouse, and my whole thing, my whole life, originally it was the girl had to be not ugly and a sure yes. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. Not like for sex, just would say yes if I asked her out.
Right.
Okay.
I was no risk involved.
Okay.
And didn't have to be gorgeous.
Wait, was this your conscious criteria or?
I wouldn't say it out loud to a
No,
girl.
but
I'd
I
be
mean-
like, hey, listen, you're not ugly,
No, I mean-
and I know you're going to say yes.
But I mean, was this in your head, your conscious criteria?
I was well aware of that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if like maybe in retrospect you're like, oh, I think this
That
is
was,
what
it
I did.
turns out. No, because like at one point, somebody pointed out, now this is getting a little racy for lunchtime in Rome, not in high school, but anyhow, that I was only dating well-endowed women. And I was like, no, it turns out that's true. That was not on the forefront of my mind.
Gotcha. That was subconscious.
Right. So now as I'm getting older, post my long relationship in college, it was terrible. I'm now just dating anybody. You know, I've said it before, but some people are sitting with us for the first time. A guy came up to me and said, Jay, I've got my criterion is now not ugly, a sure yes, and knows the Lord. So they have to be a Christian now too. And Terry Calabrese, good brother in Christ and also my mortgage guy, he said to me, I got a girl for you. And I said, no, you don't. And he goes, sure I do. You don't know. And I said, is she a Christian? Yep. She live in Pittsburgh? Yep. I was like, nope. He goes, why? I said, I'm sure I've dated her.
You've dated every Christian girl in Pittsburgh.
And then he told me about her. And I was like, sure did.
Oh, no.
And it was funny talking about her. She now is going to supplant the other story I had for worst date, because you guys know, I mean, I was the king of the first dates. I go, again, in a real big, list of requirements. So I got a million bad date stories. But this girl who I didn't go out with because I had already gone out with her, I go to pick her up, and we'd met through a mutual friend, and she was different than me, but I was like, whatever.
Wait, is this the first time you went out with her?
Yes, the time I actually went out with her.
Okay,
Because
okay.
I told Terry, no, I
Okay.
dated her. It was one of the worst dates of my life. I pick her up in Shadyside, where she lived, with her cat. I go into her apartment.
Can I ask how old you are right now?
23.
Gotcha.
I go into her apartment, and I was like looking around, and she had this really old vintage TV. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Like one of those like sit on the floor console kinds?
But
or-
even older than that. Like it's
Oh.
one of the first TVs. She's
Gotcha.
like, oh, I got it at a flea market. I'm like, and it still works? She's like, oh gosh, no.
Mm.
And I said, oh, well, where's your TV? She's like, oh, I don't have a TV. And at that point, I was like, dude, just leave. Just leave. She's got a cat and she doesn't watch TV. I think she was a teacher too, which was a bonus, but like whatever. So I said, it's pretty cold out. You're going to want to bring a jacket. She goes, well, does your car have heat? And I'm like, what the F are you even talking about? Like, yeah, I'm not rolling around in a car without heat. And she's like, well, I'll be fine.
She's like, well, I have a TV that doesn't work.
I know.
Valid.
So, I mean,
So we go out. I don't remember where we went, dinner or something like that. And so then it was terrible. It was just gross and blech. I mean, not gross. It was just so awkward, nothing in common. And I'm like, all right, it's almost over. I'm going to take her back. She's like, well, let's go get coffee.
No, what?
Now, I have told her I don't drink coffee. That was one of the things that came up. She's like, let's go get coffee. And I was like, but were you not listening?
Maybe coffee was code.
I know. I was going to say, every TV show I've ever watched, coffee does not mean coffee.
Well, we went to a coffee shop and it did have coffee.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair.
And so we get coffee and I get water. And she's like, oh, that's right. You're one of those non-coffee drinkers. And at the end, she goes, it's really cold out. Can you go get the car
Bro.
and pick me up? Because we parked far away. And the whole way, I was like, bro, just roll. Just roll.
my
Leave her.
gosh.
Leave her. It'll be a legendary guy moment.
Oh, man.
But I got her. And then we sat in the car and I know she was waiting. And I had to give her that was back. Well, they still do it, the automatic doors, but these are the ones that like popped up.
Yeah.
And then finally I was like, welp, click, and unlocked it for her. And she's like, oh, and I was like, I'll talk to you later. And that was it.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's
You
rough.
always got to wonder in a
That is
situation
rough.
like that, like, are you not reading the room right now?
She didn't read a damn thing.
Wow.
She didn't wear a coat either.
No. Last physical fight you were in
Okay, I'm going to start because
this morning with the grandmother. She respected you afterwards.
that's right. No,
She was like, no, I'm here to solve the problem.
I have been in, let's see, let me count on my fingers, 0 physical fights
Dude,
in
I'm
my
going to
life.
pop you just so you can just
0.
right in the chin.
I've never had anybody punch me. I've never punched anyone. Nothing. The closest I've ever come is just like sort of angry looks. That's it. That is it.
sneer.
Chris has a mean, firm look. Said nobody ever.
And I've got a story that'll tie into no fights later, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. I really haven't. I've never been in a physical fight.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Gym class.
Nice. That was one of mine.
Kid was
Might be my
making.
last one.
It was my This was my first.
No.
This was my first and last physical
All right.
fight. Guy was making fun of me. I was a heavy set kid, and guy was making fun of me. And this was like, it was consistent. This wasn't
What
like
elementary school?
no, this was junior. It was 9th grade.
Oh, 9th grade.
Yeah.
Oh, you said gym class, and I went to elementary school.
Yeah, and this wasn't the first time. This was
9th
like
grade Linton, 9th grade high school.
Linton.
Okay.
And I said, I was like, look, man, if you keep on doing it, we're just gonna fight. As the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, this isn't who I am. I don't want to do this. But
You had reached a point.
I had reached a point. I was just done. And this was the first time in my life where I think I realized. Well, let me finish the story. So we go outside, and
Outside.
Was this like a planned moment? Are you talking about like
No.
we go outside?
He didn't call him out. I called you out.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was
So
the
we
thing
were
when I was in
walking
school.
outside because we were going to like one of the fields to do,
Oh, sure.
to do something.
Oh, okay.
And, he throws his first punch. I back up and I dodge it. And
Nice.
I'm like, wow,
I'm already impressed.
okay. And then he comes in with another one and he lands it. And there is like, if you've never been hit in the face, there is a very unique experience where you are looking one direction one way and in a split second you're looking the other way. So like he hit me and my face went left and I just like, I lost it and I charged him and I pushed him down. And if you know, at Linton, when you come out of the gym, you're going like into the parking lot and there's cars. Well, I pushed him in front of a car. Thank goodness that car stopped. And like, but he was on the ground, and I just he looked like he was just like shocked.
Never expected you to fight back.
And I reached down, I grabbed his hand, I picked him up. I said, "Are we done? Are we good? Like, let's be done." Because at that second, misses the flippo. Gym teacher came out, and I was like, because we're going to get expelled if we keep going, or suspended or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we were cool. And then everything was fine. And that was like the first time in my life I was like, maybe some people just need to just
need a smack
hit.
in the mouth.
Yeah. And everything was fine. That was the first and last fight I ever got in.
Wow.
And I don't even regret it. I don't. I don't regret anything.
You did the right
about
thing.
It. Yeah.
You should have given a little Samoan splash. You're like, who's big, buddy? Kaboom. For me, it was 8th grade, and it's a half-hour long story, but it was a kid who was running his mouth about a burnout in the back of the bus, and I was sitting next to him. And the next day, I get on the bus, and apparently the burnout found out about this kid, Joey, running his mouth about him. And Joey said, no, it was Jay. And I was, I get on the bus and everybody's like, ooh. And I'm like, whoa, whoever they're doing this to is in trouble. And I'm like, oh, it's me. And so the burnout's like, look, I'm either going to beat one of your asses, or you guys are going to fight each other. And I'm like, well, I have motivation, so let's go. Yeah. And so we got off the bus stop there at Sycamore and walked up a little bit to a driveway. And
you got to get out of the bus stop area because that's still school ground.
There was one black kid on our bus, and he was on my side, and everybody else on the bus was on Joey's side. Oh, no, there was one burnout girl. She was really nice to meet, Gia. But anyhow, and I just tackled him.
You still remember her name. That's sweet. Sorry.
Gia Ferrero. But and so we just went at it, and he tackled me. I'm sorry. And all I did was unload on his face. I punched him 1,000 times. He's throwing me all over the place, but I'm just unloading punches the whole time. We roll into a rose bush, and I still have a little scar where a thorn went through the webbing between my pointer finger and my thumb and then ripped out. And at one point, his shoe came off and he called timeout. And I was exhausted, so I gave it to him. And then he kicked me, and I just looked at him because he had started to take karate. And I just looked at him, I'm like, what are you doing? And he kicked me again, and I grabbed it, and then I took him down, and then it ended with me on top of him where the big black kid pulled me off. And we're like, are you done? Yeah, are you done? Just like you said.
Yeah.
And then that night, I walk home, and blood is just pouring out of my hand. And my mom, stay-at-home mom, was like, honey? And I was like, Mom, he was talking about you. Which he wasn't, but it was just too long of a story. And then
your mom fought him.
Greg Johns, who now plows our driveway and cuts our lawn for the church, was dating my sister at the time, and he owned a landscaping company all the way back then. And he worked with Joey's dad. And so he comes over for dinner, and he would always bully me like a sister's boyfriend would.
Right,
he was 25 years old. Yeah. And he's like, didn't think you had it in you. And I was like, oh, so you heard? And he's like, oh, he is messed up.
Oh, wow.
And his eyes were all black and blue. And then the next day, the bus all took Joey's side instead of mine and said that I was just as beat up as he was. I was just wearing makeup.
Oh, boy.
To cover my swollen eyes. His eyes were shut.
Yeah.
So that was the last fight. But even then, it was cool because Gia and her sister would stick up for me and would yell at everybody on the bus.
There you go.
Yeah.
Were they older?
Yeah. They were 8th grade. What was 8th grade? They were 10th grade.
10th grade.
I was in 8th grade.
They felt like you felt like they were
and then
20.
Joey and I became cool.
Yeah. Right. Isn't that funny? That's so funny how that works.
Tough times, man. And both of you are mentioning, I said I have a story later, but you're both mentioning middle school / junior high.
Middle school's the worst.
It is the worst.
It's the worst.
Moment you felt most comforted.
That's wide open.
That's wide open. But that's what makes it so difficult. Mm-hmm. Most comforted.
For me, it's the Trey days. I mean, it's the worst moment of my life. It is the worst moment of my life, and yet one of the sweetest. And I go specific to even the day of the funeral. I mean, just to see the guys in the back of the room and the viewings and the different people just sobbing worse than we were. And, it was just, it takes, so tonight at Grief Share, they said that grief is the price you pay for love. That if you don't ever want to grieve, don't ever love. Mm. And so I would say, okay, we had to go through a lot losing a son. But boy, I got to feel comfort like I've never felt before. Which is a terrible thing to lead with because you guys are like, well, my shoelace broke.
Yeah. Well, no, guys, this is the one I was thinking of. When Amy had a miscarriage, that was a really tough time, but we've had so much, support. And I would even like argue now, since Amy's mom has passed away, like the love and comfort. I guess the reason why it's like so hard for me to pick is like, and I hate, this is such a cliche answer, but like we as a group get comfort.
We do get
we
a lot.
understand comfort.
Sure. Good point.
So like every time something since I've known you guys has happened that's bad, we've always had great comfort. So, but those would be my two.
Yeah. That's a good point, though. Most is maybe unfair.
That's my good point for the year. See you next year.
This is how like self-unaware I am. I feel like I can't come up with a time in my like Eric. I'll
Growing
second,
up.
yeah, like I'll second what Eric said about like recent years. Yes, all the time.
It's hard for me to remember a lot
But
of things.
like-
from,
Well, because it's also
Yeah.
rare.
I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, because I don't think back to childhood and think about how uncomforted I was, and yet when I try to think of a specific time where somebody was very comforting, it's hard for me to come
Sure.
up with that.
like my grandma was very comforting to me.
Just
like-
in general.
Just in general,
Yeah.
right?
Right. But probably in an accepting and secure way.
Yeah, oh,
It
totally.
wasn't that she was joining you in your emotions.
Well, and I had a high need of
Right.
acceptance.
Right.
And who accepts you more than your grandma?
Right.
Well, my grandma.
Not my grandma.
Yeah.
She did not accept me.
Well, Papa Bronner did.
Papa Bronner sure did.
Yeah.
So I will give another quick example, and it's going to be funny because it parlays into a fight. Much like you in gym class, for me, 6th grade, I'd been bullied the whole year by this kid. And it was only because I was afraid of getting into trouble, and he was always in trouble. So I would never fight back. And then one day I snapped and I punched him, and it broke his jaw. And blood was pouring out of his mouth. And we had a very strong teacher, Mr. Thompson, the one that called me Joseph, because he didn't believe in nicknames. And I walked.
Did he do a handstand on his podium?
I doubt it.
No, there was a teacher that would do a handstand on his podium.
That's so crazy.
And he did not look like a teacher that
Curly
could do,
hair, tall, thin. Anyhow. And I walked to school, and Mr. Thompson's thing was Jolly Ranchers, watermelon Jolly Ranchers. If you did your times tables right, you got a Jolly Rancher, and you had to stay in front of the class. So that day, I hadn't talked to him yet. I'm still in school. I punched the kid. He's on his way to the hospital, whatever else. And he goes, Joseph, I want you to stay after school. Let's have a talk. And I was like, I'm going to be killed. That's it. It's over. And my buddy, as he walked out, like to go to the bus, he just looked back at me and he was like, good luck, man. And I was just like, oh no. And he goes, come here. And I sat down in the chair next to his desk, which, it's not where I said. He goes, you want a watermelon Jolly Rancher, Joseph?
the worst flavor.
And I was like, yeah. And he just asked the story. And it was like, that was just like, it's okay. Here, have a piece of candy. Let's hear the story. And it was all cool. And so it was pretty good.
That is good.
What's the worst thing you ever bought?
Okay, I've got two.
Which is, I'm stealing this from the Are You Garbage podcast, which if you're a devout Christian, I encourage you not to listen to it because it is filthy dirty. But they have famous people on. And one of the questions they ask is, when you got your first big check, what's the worst thing you ever spent money on? And the one quote was, I don't own anything now that I bought then. And I was like, man, that's a great quote.
Right.
So do you have any big purchases that you regret?
Yeah, I bought a Chevy Blazer that just was not.
Oh, a bad car.
Yeah, it was a bad car. But my first car was a Chevy Blazer, and I loved it. But it was because it was one reason. It was because of my first car.
Sure.
But this one was just a lemon used car, just horrible.
That sucks.
Yeah,
I have two. I have
Tesla.
that was my greatest purchase ever. No.
How dare you? Until that thing catches on fire, it
That's
is
right,
the best car
right.
ever. Or freezes up in the winter.
That's right.
Or he has to replace the battery.
None of which has happened.
Or you get an oil leak. I found out because there's oil.
There
in
is
the
oil
motor.
inside the
And
motor.
if it
Yeah.
leaks, there's a little bit of
Yeah,
money.
right. There are things that can happen, But no. So number one, treadmill. Amy
you
and I.
mean a clothes rack?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Amy and I, before we, this was like open up a line of credit to do this, bought like a really nice, huge honking treadmill at probably at Dick's or maybe at Dunham's, some local.
Sporting goods shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the exact price, but it was something like $800, which at the time was like $1,000.
Yeah.
But we were gonna use this
Oh yeah. You're gonna
every
get
day
healthy.
forever.
That's right.
And in the large house that we live in, clearly we have space for this
Did
giant.
you put it in the first or the second gym?
So
The first trailer.
Which
with all
wing of the
hair.
house?
it ended up being used obviously for a short period of time, but just sitting in a very large section of our family room downstairs in the basement for like, I don't know, a decade or a decade and a half. And like finally, like, a handful of years ago, we finally like got rid of it, sold it on eBay or something for very little. And it just, it was a glorified dust collector / and it's just, that kind of stuff drives me crazy. And I'll couple that with, this is not my second one, but I'll couple that with gym membership, which, gosh darn it,
Still haven't canceled.
I haven't canceled it, and I still want to go to Planet Fitness, and I just haven't gone.
How long?
Ben and I went once.
No, when did you join?
July.
Oh, this year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
that's not bad. I thought you were going to be like 3 years.
What
like
time? What time do you have to go be at school?
Oh, you want me to go before school? I have to be there at 8:00.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Real man would work out at 6:30.
I worked out at 6:30 yesterday morning.
At Planet Fitness. Good for you, man.
Go for it. Do it.
Go with me.
Do it.
You go with me for a week.
Here's the thing. I have to get up at 6:30 though, just to get like stuff set for the day before I head out at 7:30.
Well, you have to get up before 6:30 to get there at 6:30.
Well, I'm just saying I'd have to be there.
We'll
at
talk
like
about it. We'll talk
6.
about it. We'll talk about it.
It's a whole anyway. But my second one, and we got out of this thankfully. But my second nearly worst purchase ever: timeshare.
You bought it.
We bought it for 18 hours before we.
How'd you get out?
Well, there is like a whatever grace period that all it took was a phone call, but we like
They sacrificed Molly.
they.
Molly was her first child.
I was gonna say, you don't know about the original Davidson child.
That's the shedding dog. That's who Molly is. But
Oh, Mr. Inglecays.
yes,
Donor.
Dog.
And so it was, I don't know, somewhere Cranberry area. Don't know the name of the company. Not important. But went for the whole spiel because when you're young, you get sucked into like,
It's such
sign
a
up for such and
long
such, and you get a
spiel.
free blah, blah, blah.
They wear you down.
Oh, they were you.
We got worn down and drove away, and we're like, oh, that was a good, I'm glad we, and the further we got,
Crunching the numbers.
closer to home, we're like, I don't know if we should have. And then by the time we get home, we're like, oh, this is terrible. This is the worst thing we've ever done. And so the next morning we called because we had Amy's dad, who was a lawyer, was up on that sort of stuff. And she's like, oh, he said, yeah, there's like a 24-hour grace period or whatever. Like any purchase, they have to let you out of it. And so we called, and it was actually very simple. Thank goodness.
The company's out of business now.
Yeah.
Like it was just a phone call. We're like, yeah, we need to cancel. And they're like, okay, we thank you. We understand. And that was it. But whoa, for 18 hours, it was like,
Yeah.
I returned a car once. It's the first car I ever bought. I was at the Day Chevrolet on 286. And I went just to look. And I mean, I'm 20, I don't even know what, 21 maybe.
and you just got pressured into
And
it.
they're pressuring me. Z34, but it was more used. They were trying to get me on a 6-year deal, which is ironic because that's what I'm on now. But it was used and all this stuff. And I was like, nope, I'll come back tomorrow. And they're like, no, you got to do it tonight. Oh, it's all the things. And I said, I will consider buying it tonight if you give me a 24-hour period to return it. And I said, you got to write it down. Oh, yeah, not a problem, blah, blah, blah. And then when I went to buy it, I was like, where's the, and the guy like just wrote it in ink on the contract, like, because they didn't include it.
It's still binding. It's on
And
paper.
I got in the car and it, like the ashtray was full, like they hadn't cleaned it.
Yeah.
Drove home and I was like, nope, we're going back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I took it back.
Good for
you.
to like follow through and do that. Because I guess, were you in your 20s at that
Like I
time?
said, like 22, maybe
Yeah,
21.
like I feel for all of the young adults who are like,
especially this time because they're, like they say, adolescence has been pushed back. So 21 is like 24-year-olds now.
yeah, right. And I mean, and you are under pressure from these middle-aged adults who I mean, let's face it, they're trying to take advantage. Like, that's the business is
They
how,
can be.
right. But how many people can we, like, they're not concerned for you and what you should be doing for your own personal welfare. They just want to, make the sale or whatever.
Hey, we got plenty of questions left, but we're kind of wrapping up. So why don't we?
That's amazing.
I don't know. I think we could do it.
What?
I finished it up.
Ooh.
Because like longest friendship.
Yeah, we could go quick if you want.
All right, bang. Okay.
Mine would be, other than Amy, Brian.
Okay, go. How long?
I think we're going on like 11 years at this point.
All right.
So I'm going to count. I'm
Rapid fire. Go on.
I got to do a little explanation. So I am a terrible long-term / long-distance friend. However, my longest friend, his name is Dane, friend since kindergarten.
Wow.
And I would say, and we don't talk regularly. We talk when he calls occasionally because I'm bad and I never call. And he actually reminds me a lot of you, Jay. I know, right? You guys know my communication skills, but he reminds me a lot of you, his personality. And
Nice guy.
very outgoing, very, extrovert.
Sure.
And
Handsome.
oh yeah. And
Humble.
I'm thankful that he reaches out.
Continues to pursue.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
there.
For me, it would have to be good old Dan Leopold, who sits with us at the table.
Yeah, I love Dan.
We became good friends 9th, more in 10th grade, and off and on kind of a thing. And don't get to see him really ever, but we talk and communicate. So that would be true.
Longest you've gone without showering. All right. When I was a kid, I lived outside during the summer.
The Brian Herr pool method.
Yeah, except without a pool. There was a creek. We had a little, creek
Just
through
like
the
some Ivory
backyard.
soap down there.
But I would say early elementary, maybe second grade, summer-ish. I don't have the exact count of how many days. I just know
Quite a while.
I have memories of wearing the same clothes
Oh, gosh.
for days and days.
And you judge Mr. Engel K for riding a moped.
I know there's no judging. I appreciate that he. No, it was gross, man. I don't know how many days I went.
Boy Scout camp, it's unknowable.
Can't be. No.
Yeah, but camp's only a week long, though.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I've never gone more than a week.
Right. For me, it would be probably in Canada, the one year that we flew in. But even then, like, there was no running water. We flew into the lake, landed on the lake, stayed in a cabin. But we had that big canvas or rubber bag that would hold like 5 gallons of water. No, probably 3 gallons of water. But it would heat up. So as long as it was 70 degrees and sunny outside, the water would get to like 90.
Oh.
And you'd hang it from a tree
Yeah.
and shower.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of the best showers I've ever had in my life.
Huh.
Uncomfortable family situation growing up.
I can't. There's a few, but I can't.
My main one would be like, so my dad was he's an engineer, retired engineer, and he would be a contract engineer. So like whenever he got laid off, like it was always a crummy moment. It always, so to this day, like when I hear somebody like losing their job, my stomach hurts.
Sure.
Like for that person or, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, the big one for me is when I found out Dad was doing the midlife crisis thing. That was tremendously uncomfortable. But even in our family, I don't think I've talked about this that much. Mom pulls us in, tells us Dad's having an affair. He's left us, blah, 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 blah. And like later on that afternoon, we were like, Kathy worked at Wendy's. First ever, by the way. Wendy's on Road I Road, just above Antelope, Sunoco, formerly Lums. First ever employee of the month, Kathy was. At Wendy's on
I
Road
think we're
I.
going to say that's the first Wendy's.
First ever.
Nope, Kathy was the first.
They still
employee of the
talk
month.
about
and,
that.
Hey, let's bring everything full circle. She met Greg Johns because he kept going through the drive-through until she went out with him.
Aw.
Point of the story is this:
That's fun.
we made the joke that she was going to
Gained
steal
50 pounds, but
steal ketchup. So that we can make ketchup soup now that Dad had left our family. And that, I forget, or else she would sell her body, which at the time was even funnier than now. But I mean, that was that afternoon. We were making jokes
Yeah.
about that.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
Most alone you've ever felt. Well, this got pretty dark.
Okay, so this is rapid fire, so I won't take too long. But this goes back to the story about last fight you were in, and I was never in a fight, but I was bullied one major time. I've come across a few
Do you want me
different.
to talk to Amy?
She's tough, man. I don't know. She's a bully. No, 8th grade, so back to middle school, junior
it's
high.
the worst.
And this one kid just decided. I mean, there were again rapid fire. I don't want to get into all the little details, but decided he was gonna pick on me. I was very small for my age. He was like the biggest, toughest kid in our grade. Come on. Anyway, I felt very, very alone that day that most of it like happened in school, because I just was inside my
you're
brain.
so hot in your
Nobody
head.
was approaching me or
Nobody's coming to rescue
right.
you.
And then there was a junior high dance. I don't know if it's all. It blends together. The same day, the next day, the whatever, that weekend, and I go to the dance, and he's bullying me again, and I'm feeling miserable, and my this goes into, maybe this is my most like I don't know if this counts as comfort. I think it does, coming alongside, right? The guy, his name was also Chris, who became my best friend in high school. Who we were friends then, but it was not as close as later. But he just came up to me and said, like, let me ask you a question. Do you like him? Like, do you? And I was like, well, no, like, kind of hate him. And he's like, well, then why do you listen to him? And like, just him just being there and talking me through some of that made me feel so not alone in that moment, that I was able to, like, I was all ready to stand up to him and everything. And I was, and then he never said anything to me ever again. So, so it never became
That's terrible
an issue.
and
but
awesome.
Yeah, it was terrible and awesome.
I have two. I'll be quick though. First one was when I realized like my best friends at the time in high school.
I remember the story.
I realized they're not my best
That's
friends.
Terrible,
worst.
terrible.
It's the worst.
And they really didn't like me. And yeah.
Ugh.
And then second one would be, so I mentioned before, Amy had a miscarriage and she thought she was okay and she was ready to go to a baby shower.
Oh no.
Which I went with her. And there was a bunch of pregnant women there, like everybody's pregnant, and you know, she's okay at the party. She put on a good face at the party, and then when we got in the car,
Oh boy.
45 minutes of just like
Screaming
pure hell,
sadness.
just crying all the way home, and then crying herself to sleep that night. I was like, I don't even know.
And that's long before.
That's
any
long
of
before
this.
any of this. I was
Right.
like, I don't even know what to do with this. Like, all I can do is just be there. Like, that was it.
Right.
And that's why I kept on telling myself. I was like, just be here. There's
With
nothing,
your
there's nothing you can
face.
say. Yeah, there's nothing you could say. Just be here. Like, that was the longest night of my life, I think.
Yeah.
So the fight that I won, that then the bus turned on me, was so bad that I would get off the bus, and I would walk along the bus, and they would spit at me. And of course, the bus driver wouldn't do anything about it.
It's crazy.
And so I would have to cross.
That's the worst thing you could do to somebody. Spit
I would
on
have
them.
to. That's unless Gia was on the bus. Gia would mother F them and not let them do
you
that.
go.
But I would have to cross the street in front of the bus to walk on the other side of the street where there was no shoulder until the bus passed, and then I would have to cut back across.
My goodness.
Then, when I told my mother about it, she said, "Honey, what do you want me to do? Call the school?"
Alone. That's like literally
That's,
alone.
that's when you're alone.
Dude,
And
when
if-
your own mom, because I will say that, man, my mom, I could have like murdered a kid, and my mom would be like,
Let's stick up for you.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, and if I may blow up Amy's spot, but she shared it on the podcast when she was being bullied, and she shared it with her mother. And her mother said, "Everybody hates you. Nobody likes you. Why don't you just go eat
Yeah,
worms?"
she sang
The
to
song.
her. Yeah.
Man, that's brutal.
hates you.
And in
Dude, that is
conclusion,
so-
like,
yeah.
greatest
Let's
greatest
go ahead.
celebration ever.
Mine would be last year, 40th birthday.
Oh, that's a good one.
Amy threw me a hell of a 40th birthday. It was so fun. Disc golf trip. Just,
Broken chairs,
oh man, it was so fun.
cool courses.
No Chris on a rafter though, and that's got to change this year.
No, it will not.
That was Amy's 40th.
That was Amy's 40th.
I don't know. I racking my brain for this one. I don't know. I mean, I've celebrated weddings, including my own, like great times.
Childbirth, blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
Right, you're just
Right, exactly.
yeah,
But I don't
yeah.
know.
Well,
I don't know.
They're all so good.
I think maybe, Eric, it's your 40th birthday party.
No, Amy's. No, Amy's.
Amy, yeah,
Oh,
my
yeah.
my Amy's.
Oh, that was my, yeah. Absolutely.
Chris climbed up on the rafter inside of a place, and then when I tried to help him down, he ended up in a really bad place on the back of the couch. So he may or may not have broken.
So great. We should make that the cover photo of this episode.
My thigh, my huge
No,
bruise.
when you were on the rafter.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a million, but I would say
Dude, let's do it. I'm doing it.
you have to. I mean, there's a lot, but I would say maybe when we won the WPIL championship my senior year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, we did it. You know, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty
That is
awesome.
cool.
So,
Man, this was great sharing with you guys. And we'll have to do one of these again where we actually do like the right link and like get people, and maybe
Yeah.
the anonymous form where people
For sure.
can answer, and we can share some of those too. Because it's such a cool blend of questions. Kudos to you, Jay, for coming up with all those. Or
was
stealing them from other.
oh yeah, no, even that was the only one.
But that's how we're going to wind down episode 230, if you can believe that. Make sure, please, to give us a like or follow on social media. Visit us at lunchtimeinrome.com. And while there, you could take a relational needs questionnaire. Thanks for joining us at the table for Lunchtime in Rome.
See you next week.
Bye.